Let's imagine ourselves as an everyday casual TF2 player, one that has been playing for hours exploring everything TF2 has to offer, from maps to game modes. One day, from either the grapevine or interest, we hear about this new game mode, Traditional 6's. Wanting to know more, we go up to an experienced 6's player and we ask, "What is Traditional 6's?" The 6's player responds, "Traditional 6's is a competitive format that features teams of 6 playing primarily on 5CP maps, and occasionally on COF maps. It's fast-paced, focusing on raw skill and strategy." That sounds interesting. But wait, why 5CP maps? Well, because the standard lineup of classes just works so well on those two, of course. 2 scouts, 2 soldiers, 1 demo, and 1 medic. Okay, that kinda makes sense. I don't like playing engineer on 5CP because I have to move my entrance teleporter all the time. So I'm assuming that this Traditional 6 is something brand new to the game. Oh, on the contrary, Traditional 6's is TF2's biggest and most popular competitive format. This is where our casual TF2 player gets a bit confused. They wonder why such a game mode would be the most popular competitive format for TF2, imagining that a better fit would be one where all classes are used or where a different combination of classes take place. Can you explain why those classes are used instead of something like Sniper or Heavy? Well, that's because Scout, Soldier, and Devilman are so generally applicable to almost any situation, from defense to offense. Their movement ability also gives them greater positional application, allowing them to get higher ground through an explosion or an extra jump, as well as speed. This is unlike Sniper and Heavy, who, while their weapons are effective, they are practically sitting ducks for damage and can easily be outmaneuvered. Medic is viable because he can leash onto scouts to get him his speed boost. But of course, his main strength is his constant heal beam and his iconic Uber Charge. In fact, almost all strategies revolve around Uber Charge in one way or another because of how powerful it is to holding or breaking a stalemate. The weaknesses of other classes prevent them from being run full time, and thus they aren't. They are reserved when their strengths overpower their weaknesses at a critical point, such as having an engineer on last point. This is called off-classing by the community. I guess that sounds fair. You do tend to see more soldier frag montages than Heavy. What's stopping someone from running double Devilman or double Medic anyway? I see those strategies working really well in casual. Well, what prevents them is the fact that in the global rule set we have class restrictions. Devilman, Medic, and Heavy are limited to 1 per team and the rest 2. This is done to limit stagnation, as Devilman himself is a master of shutting down routes, Medic's overheal can make it hard to kill someone, and Heavies are just huge pools of health. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm glad those are there. It gets really annoying. But what if I really like playing Heavy and I want to play him all the time in 6's? Will I get banned or something? Unless you're playing in a league or in a third-party matchmaking lobby where they explicitly say that you'll be banned if you go off class for too long or at all, then the answer is no. The global rule set has no formal ruling on permanent off classes. While you may get some nasty comments by your opponents and even your teammates, you will not get any formal repercussions during scrims. But just to let you know, you will be handicapping yourself by not staying as a soldier or a scout because of the weaknesses of off classes during regular play. That's okay. I can make those weaknesses less of a weakness. As a Heavy, I'd equip the Fists of Steel. That resistance will allow me to really tank some damage. Well, no, you can't, because the Fists of Steel are banned in competitive 6's. For such a low player number that is 6's, the Fists of Steel make it extremely difficult to kill a Heavy without focus fire from the enemy. It practically gives him 500 plus health. Okay, then I'll ask a soldier to run a disciplinary action, or as an engineer, I'll use the short circuit to help my teammates by getting rid of those annoying stickies. Well, you can't do that either. The disciplinary action and the short circuit are also banned. What? I get that the Fists of Steel are banned, it would be overpowered, but the disciplinary action, the short circuit, it kinda sounds like this format is intentionally preventing the off classes from being viable in 6's. Well, I'm not gonna call your claim a conspiracy because you're correct. This format is intentionally making off classes less viable, it's no secret. That's so dumb! Why would we want to play competitive mode that locks out 44% of the game, not to mention that there's no payload, no attack defense, no capture the flag, no payload race? It's absurd! I understand your frustration. This format is not similar to base TF2 whatsoever. But I want you to understand that this isn't a product of rules set by some de facto leadership of a complete authority, but rather a community effort iterated on from the early days of TF2. This is one reason why TF2's biggest competitive scene differs from other games. where competitive scenes are controlled by the developers who think they know what's best, and where the meta follows the changes rather than the changes following the meta. And most apparently, unlike other games where casual and competitive scenes don't differ much if at all, as with Overwatch and Counter-Strike, that is why TF2 has a barrier of entry to the comp scene. Iterations upon iterations on what works and what doesn't has caused a line between casual and competitive. Valve's Meet Your Match effort was an attempt to blur the lines between them, but it failed to do so because countless of reasons, which the awesome TF2 channel SSTF2 guys will go into depth in another video, so I recommend you subscribing to that channel. Wink wink nudge nudge. At its core, TF2 is a casual game designed explicitly for 12v12 where you're enjoying your time in a loosely dependent team, playing a class that is enjoyable to you as its goal. Do you understand? Well, I guess. At least it's a good thing that the format was formed from an effort of what people liked. It must be rather enjoyable. Otherwise, no one would play it. Can you at least tell me why these changes were made? Of course. Honestly, it's the simplest but most important reason. Fun. Isn't that just a buzzword? Whoever told you that must be an industry hack who failed to get into the film industry and is compensating by taking the low-hanging fruit that is video game storytelling. No. Fun is what the community strives for in any competitive scene anywhere. As the Chad Filzame once said,
"If it's not fun, why bother?"
But of course, fun is subjective. If played laid back on a casual server with minimal communication and light teamwork with no central or strategic planning is fun to you, then casual is where you want to stay. But if your idea of fun is fast-paced action, strategy, skill-focused teamwork, and communication, then competitive may be your cup of tea. The antithesis of fun in competition, however, is frustration and boredom, and that is what we're trying to avoid. Frustration and boredom can derive from multiple sources. For example, overpowered mechanics or weapons. To allow such things means that everyone is going to use those overpowered weapons, which makes the game boring because that's all you'll ever see. Frustration comes when you feel like there's nothing you can do to overcome it. For example, the Fists of Steel. Some weapons aren't overpowered, they're just cheap, meaning that they don't require much skill to use, but return a lot of advantage. Mad Milk and Girardi are a product of this, in where you just throw a fast-charging item that gives your team free health regen or mini-crits, respectively. This makes those weapons frustrating because you feel cheated, as if you didn't feel like you lost fair and square through skill, rather just an I win button. Other weapons make the game boring by slowing the game down. While the quick fix might not excel in offense, on defense it can be favorable with its faster heal rate. This makes players harder to kill than normal, and while it's still possible to kill them, it is frustrating to kill a player when your damage is easily reverted by a couple seconds of healing. It makes breaking a stalemate less likely and thus slows down the match. Finally, to the point about intentionally making off classes weak in 6's. My reasons aren't necessarily the actual reasons, but they're pretty good educated guesses based on how things have been handled. First reason is we don't want classes like Heavy and Engie to be generally viable. We want to preserve what makes them special by reserving them to a specialist tag. In other words, we want them only to be used when their time calls for it. Second reason, and probably the most accurate, is if we did make them generally viable, their playstyles will make the game slow down a lot more since that's what they're good at, slowing down an offensive attack with their defensive strengths. Aside from exploits, these three criteria apply to each weapon band in one way or another. Okay, but why are 5CP maps the most played maps? 5CP maps are the most dynamic map type in TF2. Unlike King of the Hill and Attack Defense, 5CP's multiple points are different for each side. Attacking the second point differs from defending the second point on both sides, so while the map doesn't change at all, the strategies do. And unlike Payload or Attack Defense, a captured point does not mean that the losing team is left to defend and nothing more. They always have a chance to rebound and put the offensive team on defensive. And personally, a tug of war tends to be more fun than racing down a clock. And of course, just like I said earlier, 5CP works best with traditional 6's, and traditional 6's works best with 5CP. Wow, a decade's worth of iterations has really made a competitive format that just works so well. I think I would really like to try it. Hey, that's great to hear. We're always looking for new players. You can always start out by playing TF2 Center, a TF2 competitive lobby matchmaking system that's provided by the community. Or you can also search for a pickup game server, also known as a PUG. Or if you really want to get some experience under your belt, you can always try joining a competitive team under a league. Whatever's the case, I just hope that you do have fun with this competitive format. 6's for me has been fun for a long time, and I really hope that it's fun for you as well.